people will come in.
Okay.
People will come in as they do, and I have to remember to click them in. So I'm going to be looking off to do that. Good evening, everyone who is here so far. I would like to introduce you to our guest speaker, Robin Miles, who is an actress and audio artist. And we'll be talking today about some things that have to do with developing audiobooks and doing stories aloud.
Yes.
I know, as a writer, I read to myself everything I write because I want to make sure it sounds okay. And I don't know if everyone does that, but I think it's something I always have my students do. Read to yourself. That will get you through. And some of us do public readings of our stories, and that's something that we want to do well. And some of us do the audiobooks for our stories. So we want that to go well also. Well, Robin can address all that because she is a gifted actor, and her bio was on the thing I sent out, and I don't have room for it on my screen, so I can't read it right now. But I'd like to begin by talking about audiobooks. We will have another session in November, I think it's scheduled for. Yes, on doing audiobooks yourself, because if you are with a small publisher, as many of us are, the audiobooks would not be something they would do. Robin does audiobooks for, you told me, Whoopi Goldberg, was that? And Cicely Tyson. You did Cicely Tyson, right?
Not Whoopi Goldberg, but I did voice Ms. Tyson's memoir before she passed. So I was able to collaborate with her on it before she passed, which was great.
Yeah. And that's a level of audiobooks that most of us don't get to. My publisher has me record my own audiobooks. I have some theater training and some radio experience. But my one of my friends at another small publisher, they get AI to do her audiobooks, and they sound awful. It's like there's a cat. Her sleuth has a pet cat named Elvira, and the AI cannot be taught to say Elvira. It calls her Elvira. so that's something that we're doing audiobooks as writers. I'm admitting someone else. We want to be able to do justice ourselves. So, Robin Miles, welcome to Mystery Writers of America, New York Chapter. We have an illuminating hour, CrimeCraft, which is about the business of writing about crime, but it's also about the business of writing.
Yeah, and Gary, would you like me to do the bio? I have it up on my screen.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
I mean, we are recording, and I would love for Robin to, have this recording as well, so that we can.
Thank you.
And we're so happy to have you with us. Thank you for making this time for us.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So, let me just do the quick bio here. Robin Miles is a producer, director, actor with over 25 years of experience in theater and audio performance. She has garnered the industry's top honors, including the Audie Award, oh my gosh, for Best Solo Performance in multiple genres. PW, I think that's Publishers Weekly and Audiophile Voice of the Year Awards, Audiophile's Golden Voice, Grammy finalist, and the Audible Hall of Fame and Earphone Awards. Her work spans Broadway, TV, audiobooks, documentary film, museum installations, which I find fascinating. ADR, you're gonna have to tell me what that is, and commercials. She attended Yale University and got her bachelor's there, the Yale School of Drama for her MFA, and the British American Drama Academy at Oxford. She teaches speech and acting at Pace University and owns Voxpertice. It sounds like expertise.
I call it Voxpertise. It's
Oh.
a made-up word. I made it up.
Awesome.
So,
Voxpertise, a New York City production and training studio. Thank
mhm.
you again for making time for us. I mean, appreciate these. This is a significant achievement, this collection in your resume. This is not done lightly. This takes years of devotion and dedication and really learning one's craft. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Thank you. We are fellow craftsmen. Um, I've always been in complete awe of writers and what you're able to do and how you construct stories, and have characters talk to you and tell them who you are and do what they do. So yes, we are definitely fellow craftsmen and we're partners. That's very, very much how I view my role as an audiobook narrator. I partner with all of my authors, and a little bit of back history. Oh, 15, 20 years ago, when I was, still young and starting out, um, we were highly discouraged, if not forbidden, to contact our authors when we were assigned a book. If they got wind of you attempting to talk to an author, you'd get a tongue lashing.
Wow.
And I didn't understand, it didn't make any sense to me. But what I started to understand is that I'm a little bit I'm a little type A. So when you see how I work, I read my book and I prepare it for recording. And any word that I come across that could have more than one pronunciation, are we going to say the sun shone or the sun shone? Is it going to be cadre or cadre? I write all of that down, plus anything that I don't know, and proper names and proper nouns, especially if they're for small towns and things. And I put them on a list. And then I usually contact my author and say, how would you like this to sound? What I discovered was way back in the day, authors' books were being made into audiobooks, and the authors were not being told. They had no idea. So I would call an author and they'd say, oh, you're doing my audio, you're doing an audiobook in my book? How come my publisher didn't tell me? And then the publisher would catch heat from the author. So they didn't want us doing that. Secondly, every time I come across a typo, whether it's, a missing word, or if it's just simply subject verb agreement, I'll just fix it, but then I note it on the sheet. And since I send all my sheets to my authors, they will know if I caught any typos that the editing department missed. And that would happen a lot. And then again, angry authors were contacting publishers. So to keep themselves out of hot water, I think that was pretty much the primary motivator. We were not allowed to contact you. Complete 360, or 180, I should say, because it's opposite side. We are now encouraged to talk to our authors. And now it's delightful because I get to have much more of a relationship with them and much more of a collegial working atmosphere. So I encourage you to inquire about your narrators. I do want to start with this process because I don't know how many of you know the process from start to finish for an audiobook. And I consider it an important thing for an author to know how to do, for one big reason, and that is you may want to be involved in the process. You may want to approve who they choose as the narrator. Obviously, they're going to find a producer and a director and someone who knows the tech end of things and the creative end of things. However, you gave birth to this thing. So I encourage you to participate in the process. To the very first thing, to really look at your contracts when you're offered a contract, to see if your audio rights have been bundled in and what other rights might you be signing away. So that's just, I've gone in and talked to some literary agents. I did a presentation for Avitas for their literary agents in terms of how to shepherd their authors through this process. Because sometimes if you leave it up to a publisher, there's so many books that they're turning out so fast. You don't want yours to be the one that got rushed. So if you have an agent, I always say to the agent, you know, here's some places where you can kind of oversee. But let me start with the basic process, and that is the word count. Approximately 10,000 words equals 1 finished hour of audio, of spoken. So if you're looking to figure out, first thing, how long is this book? Because if you're going to try and price it out in your head, the first thing you need to know is how long is the book? Because how long is it going to be will then determine for the talent approximately how much you're going to be paying them. If you're using whether you're using a SAG-AFTRA actor or a non-union actor, you're still going to be paying that actor by the finished hour. So having an estimate, a good close estimate of what is your finished time, is going to give you an idea of what your talent cost is. And then you can begin to break it out. If it's 10 hours, I'm going to be looking at, all right, SAG-AFTRA minimum, 225 an hour times 10 hours. So you got 2,000, whatever, in there. You can figure out how much approximately your talent will take. Also, if you're involved in the producing end of things, you can say, all right, they're going to need to pay an editor to edit this thing. The actor's going to go into the booth. It's going to take the actor twice the amount of finished hour time to record it. It's a 2-to-1 ratio. So that's really easy to know. Just in terms of thinking about the time, if it's a 10-hour book, a professional level reader should be able to do it in 20 hours. Unless there's a lot of complicated jargon, a lot of accents, lots and lots of dialogue, that might take longer. If your book is nonfiction, or I guess in this case, true crime, I think, you may have fewer scenes, actual dialogue between characters. And I know that I'm at about 1.5 to 1. So that gives you an idea of that. I'm going to pay my editor $30 an hour or $100 a finished hour, depending on what we have in our arrangement. You're going to go through an editing pass. The editor is going to take my files, listen through for everything. And I mean burping, farting, moving, misreading, all of the above. Because all those things happen. And that's why you have a 2-to-1 ratio also. So once you have figured out approximately how much your book is how much it's going to cost you, you got to figure out, what are you going to do? Now, there are 3 different tiers. First tier is Big 5. Let me just talk about the Big 5. And you know what I'm talking about. Penguin Random House, Hachette, Harper, right. Okay, Simon & Schuster. They have, if you're signed with one of them, they have in-house audio divisions. They may offer you the option to do an AI read of your book or to have talent do your book. I am not a fan of AI because I would never want human experience rendered by a robot. The robot can render speech and words and phonemes, absolutely. And those robots can even sort of, that can land on general emotion categories. They can do that. But if you have any irony in your book, it's going to get lost. Irony is when you say, oh, I really love it when you do that, right? So I don't really love it when you do that. It's very clear I'm being sarcastic, or maybe even ironic, or I might say, ooh, I really hate it when you do that. There's no AI that's going to be able to see those words and pick up that tone, which means you're going to have a strange moment in your text in that audiobook where people don't, it's going to be read with the emotion that was actually flagged in the text, and the irony will be lost. So that's the first thing. The second thing about AI, I've already veered off to a little puddle here, which is AI. I'm going to bring us back on track. But AI can only render those basic emotions. And what you have right now as an acting technique that is the most current in film, television, and even audiobooks is the use of emotion layered with action. The action is, what does the character want? They're going after, they're trying to influence the other person to get what they want. So there's that vector of the acting going out. And along with it is the emotional content. AI can't do that. It can't play actions. It can only play emotions. And when you're in a landscape that is purely visual, obviously there's no movie on the screen, and pictures worth 1,000 words. You can do so much with visuals, and then you don't have to have anything else going on. Well, we don't have that, and we don't even have music. Therefore, if you don't have those two layers in the acting, it doesn't feel to me completely fulfilled. So I digressed into AI because in the process, you may be asked, do you want AI to do it? It's a lot cheaper, absolutely. But depending on how much you love that work, A, and B, how many people you feel you might be able to reach. I do talk to new authors about their work. And I'm so grateful to have been able to achieve the level that I've been able to achieve. But when you want to use an actor that does have stature, and I don't mean a celebrity, because celebrity might not be the best person to read your book. They don't have audiobook experience. So when you choose your actor, if you choose somebody with audiobook bona fides, one of the things you can do is choose one of the top 50 people, and they cost more per hour. The SAG-AFTRA minimums right now are $235 a finished hour. I'm at 400. But people who choose me are choosing to use some of their marketing budget on me because I have a following, and they know that that following, people will check out what Robin's doing. Also, I'll get reviewed in the industry magazine, chances are. So they've put a chunk of their marketing and publicity budget into their production budget. And that's what goes to pay for a known narrator, because we get followed. So you'll have a choice. They'll probably offer you AI. And then you also have to think about, casting, them talking about who are the people that might be available to do the book. I would suggest you go on to Audible and listen to people, or Downpour, or any one of the distribution hubs. Just start to familiarize yourself with actors. So you can say, I want somebody like a certain person. I want Vikas Adam, or I want Saskia Marvold. I want somebody like that. And then they'll have an idea of what your wishes are in this landscape as well. The third tier of making an audiobook is literally going to acx.com, stands for Audiobook Creation Exchange.com. There's a middle tier in there, although it fits with this tier as well. When you enter into an ACX agreement, you're entering into an agreement with Audible, because Audible created ACX, and it's a marketplace for independent authors to shop for producers, directors, and actors. Interestingly, the last book I finished, which was a true crime book, it's called Never Saw Me Coming, and it's about a woman who built the banking system. She's brilliant, and she was a fan of mine and sent me a message via messenger. And then her producer called me. She got to me first because she knew what she wanted. So you do have a certain amount of say in your book, don't forget that. So we got these tiers, right? In-house at one of the big five, they've got their own people. You've got the next level, which is going to, actually I skipped this one, going to an audiobook only publisher. So Blackstone Audio, Recorded Books, Tantor, those mid-tier publishers, that's all they do, is they acquire the rights from other publishers, either larger or smaller, and then they option the right to make the audiobook, and they put it out into the marketplace. The last way to go, and it's the most economical if you're on a budget, is to try ACX. I just have to warn you though, it is flooded with people. You'll put your material up and you'll put a sample, maybe a 5-minute sample that you want people to audition with. You could easily get 100 samples that you now have to wade through. So just be prepared. Whenever you say those little letters, DIY, it's always going to up the amount of effort that you have to put into it. Okay, let me go back to my, look at the demands of your book. Be prepared to talk to your publisher about that. When I say the demands, the two things I really refer to are one, the tone and genre, or I should say the genre and the tone that follows from the genre. Are you doing a cozy mystery? Are you doing something like I directed Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, the audio drama. So I didn't do the audio book, I did the audio drama. Do you want an audio drama treatment? Would it make sense for the thing that you've written to have multiple actors? If you've written in first person and different chapters are from the perspective of different people, you might want to consider having different actors. I mean, they must talk to each other if they're going to be voicing. Sometimes, I'll be doing my character and somebody else's character is in a scene with mine. I have to know what that other actor did so that I can have in mind the type of personality that they voiced so that I make sure that there's some consistency. But just knowing what is my work, considering what would my work best show up as, you have a decision to make. The next one is characters. Where are your characters from? Are you set in rural Maine? You better have somebody who's either from there, which would be the best, to get somebody who really knows it because they're from there, or who's very strong with accents. This is why I have a career. I'm as an accent coach in a conservatory. So when I say I do accents well, I actually mean it. Most actors I come across all say, "Oh, I do a really great British accent." And then I hear it and I'm thinking in my head, "No, you don't. Where did you get that idea? Where did you get that?" Asking for a sample of their work. This now you have to work this out either on your own if you're doing this independently through ACX, or through the publishing house. What are the accents or languages that need to be spoken? A book I did recently was about the building of the Panama Canal. And so the population there spoke Spanish, but the population of laborers came from the United States. So that's Americans with like historical sound, because it was a long time ago. And then also lots of laborers from the Caribbean islands. And my family's from Jamaica. So I can do Jamaican very well. I can do Trinidadian, I can do Antiguan. So I was able to add the diversity in those characters. And then the last group, yeah, no, that was right. So do you have phrases in Norwegian? Do you have phrases in another language? Be prepared to advise and let them know you're going to need to find somebody who does this. We have a lot of search engines now in places where you're looking for narrators, where you can put that in as a search term. I need specifically like my languages are Spanish and French. So if you are just screening for actors who have the language, you can do that. Good. Producers, directors, narrators. Producers sometimes are in-house at your publisher. Sometimes they're external. Two of the biggest recording studios that do very, very good work, Dion Studios out in California, John Marshall in New York, and really we can work from anywhere. That's where they're located, but we're in the Zoom age. You can hire a recording studio that has a staff of engineers to essentially produce it for you in-house. You will pay for that. But again, if I've got a producer that I'm hiring, and then a director that I'm hiring, and then actors, there are different ways that your budget will get bigger, or you can compress the budget. You might hire an actor who has production experience. I personally feel as a narrator, I do not ever want to edit my own work. Many people do. And it's quite a savings. It's a savings for you. It's not a savings for us because we end up doing twice the work, but we actually don't get paid for it, or not all of it. But one thing I can tell you is an actor that can produce their own work can take a lot of your headaches away. Plus, remember, if you hire a producer who then hires a director, they've got to budget out the director's fee. And then they have to hire the talent, and they've got to budget out the talent's fee, but they're taking a fee for being the organizer. So you see how easily your budget can grow. ACX, you can find a producer on ACX, hire the producer, and then they'll essentially walk you through the process. You can go to one of the studios that produce, and those are the two big ones that I trust the most. Good. Once your book gets out into the ecosystem, you're going to have to pick a distributor. Audible is the biggest one on the block, but they're going to take a huge chunk of your profits. It's written into their contract. They're going to take 60, you're going to get 40, and that 40 is then going to get split between you and the actor. Oftentimes, if you have a profit share, which is a less costly way to get your book done, do a profit share with an actor, so that they only take the upfront money to literally pay the editor and or the QC person. Your QC person will listen through the entire book, start to finish, and pick up any last little things that got missed. Believe it or not, it's a process that is really needed. However, once you get to the end, you need a distributor. So you got Audible, you've got Authors Republic, you've got oh gosh, what's the third one? It's gonna go out of my mind. I gotta get it back. It's my friend's company. I should know this right off the top of my head. Stephen's company is not Realm. Ty? Oh, he's out. Okay, let me think about it, because I have to recall it, and my brain is just not grabbing it at the moment. But now, there used to be that the only thing you could do was go to Audible, or go to, like, Blackstone Audio has their own distribution node. It's called Downpour, just like Heavy Rain, Downpour, downpour.com. Authors Republic is a wonderful place, because when you give them your manuscript, they then place it in all of the other distributors. And Stevens does that as well. I have to find his company. I'll find it before we go today. And once it's out there, you're going to have to promote it, which again is one of the reasons why you might want to use a known narrator, somebody with some traction, because that is going to help you bring in more listeners, and it will also help to get your your audiobook in front of the ears of a reviewer. At AudioFile Magazine, if you're not familiar with AudioFile Magazine, there are two. There's AudioFile PHILE, that's the stereo enthusiasts magazine. AudioFile FILE is the audiobook review magazine that comes out in print and also online. You can go there to look for talent, by the way. They have a talent guide. The other place you can look, again, is audiopub.org. AUDIOPUB, audiopub.org. And audiopub.org is the Audiobook Publishers Association. But again, they have a database. John Marshall, the studio I mentioned before, they have in-house casting now. And Penguin Random House has created its own casting database as well. So if you have pear-shaped ideas about how you want things done, and you want to be able to weigh into the actors, or come into the room where it happens with ideas of your own, another place you can go, it's called AHAB, just like the, and the whale. AHAB is the in-house casting that they do at Penguin Random House. I think they may charge a fee to use it, but I'm not sure. I haven't used it lately, so I don't remember. That is essentially the start to finish of what's going to happen when you have your audiobook made. Pretty bare bones. And we can have a Q&A. Write down your questions, and we can take them at the end. Good. Anything you wanted to add, Gary?
Yes. When you are in the performance space, in the book, when you're doing that, how do you differentiate, bring to life the subtext? Because that's what AI cannot do, as you were saying earlier with, I really love when you do that.
Yeah.
How do you do that for the ear? Because many of us, when we're writing, because the part that isn't written sometimes speaks the loudest, and
Yes.
we want
Yes.
if somebody's going to read the book, we want them to hear the characters. We want them, not just if it's an audiobook, if they're actually reading. What do we do about voice? How do you do that so that we can translate that to the page? That becomes its own trick. I mean,
Well, I will say,
go ahead.
I will say that the word subtext is what I've anchored on. You used that early on. Firstly, hiring someone who's a bona fide actor, who's used to searching for subtext in writing, I think is your best bet. Or someone who's had acting experience at the very least. Because now I teach script analysis in a conservatory. So I get the little freshmen when they're 18, 19, and they look at Chekhov and Ibsen and O'Neill and, our classic playwrights, and have a really hard time when they start figuring out that's what was going on in the scene. How did you know that? I get that a lot. So having somebody who's used to doing that, meaning an actor, is going to be very, very helpful. Being able to sense shifts. So the way a character talks all of a sudden shifts. They change a subject, like they veer off to something else. I know a shift has taken place, and the shift may be in the underside of things, not in the words. It may be in the back and forth behavior. So I'm looking for behaviors that I can then express. The second thing I think that is the most important in the audio landscape, and unless you have to rely on your actor, unless you write it in, and I don't know whether you might feel like it's heavy-handed, and I might even agree, I'm not sure, but breath. One of the ways that breath is invaluable in an audio landscape is if I feel fear and I take an in-breath, you might hear, that's all. I don't have to do anything else. Or I might, are you sure? Stumble over the first word. So that can be rendered by the pen, the stumbling, or an intuitive actor. You may find that you've written it, and you've written it beautifully, and you've written it well, and your actor comes in and is having the emotional experience and takes it to that next level by adding that little bit of, or privately, just that adds a lot of subtext. It lets me know emotionally what's happening. There are some, I hope there aren't many left. There are some places where I've worked where the editors, I think mostly greener, younger editors, or time pressured editors, have taken all of my breaths out. And I wanted to kill them because, firstly, it establishes the pace of the book. But secondly, with all that emotion that's in there. So I was doing a book recently. It's a mystery, so I can mention it here, by Ian Reid, Canadian writer. He's just done really, really well. He's done 3-4 books in a row, gotten film deals, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the book that I was doing was called We Spread. And it's about an older woman who moves into an assisted living facility, but it only has 4 people in it. It's a small private place. It was very close to the mic, very much in first person. So I made it like a conversation between me and my confidant, almost like I was in my room with my cell phone. And at the end of the day, every day, I would tell you what happened. This fucked up stuff, screwed up stuff. Sorry, I just dropped the F-bomb. Screwed up stuff that happened here. I almost did it like the listener is my confidant. And really, I'm pushing the envelope of style when I do that, because Ian Reid was pushing the envelope of writing style. That is what's become very much in vogue because technology allows us now to have microphones on our lapels, our lavalier mics when we're shooting film. Have you noticed what's happened with film and television? Because this is one of the things I do as an actor. I look at other art forms and see what's happening, what's developing in other art forms. In film and television, the human voice in film and television is all whispery now. And I kind of hate it, it's true. But if you can have a reason for that whispering, like I was saying, having that cell phone, and it's the only time I can speak freely when I'm not being watched. And I'm telling you, the listener, there's a perfect reason to have it whispery. And it also ups the intimacy level amazingly. But I have found that stylistically with film and television, you're going to find everybody's whispering, talking to each other. And I'm like, they're across the room from each other. Why are they whispering? They never hear each other, you know. But that is in vogue at the moment. This too may pass, but I like to acknowledge what's there. And then if I can ground it in good reason, that's going to help my author. That's going to help me. And so I find myself working closer on the microphone now. I use less breath support. You know, when I'm working, the microphone is here and I'm using breath support. It's a little bit more presentational. And I will stop here for just 1 minute because I do think I should have mentioned it earlier, but I'm going to mention it now. And that is distance. We talked about this actually, Gary. I use the word distance as a stand-in for the difference between subjective and objective, or objectivity and subjectivity in the writing. So if your writing is very subjective, one of my favorite subjective writers is Margaret Atwood. She has a narrative voice that will comment snarkily on what her characters are doing. And when an author gives me permission to do that, I will do it. If my author has not given me permission, I will not do it. That's another thing. We want to find actors who believe in the primacy of the text. I didn't write the book, you did. This needs to be what you wrote. And I can embellish here and there, but I can't make it, it's not mine. I have to be careful how I hold your baby. Everybody needs to remember that. But distance, coming back to that, subjectivity, objectivity. The closer I am in my reactions to what's going on in the writing, if I'm commenting on it, there's a piece in my demo that I've just started recording where Margaret Atwood's narrative persona says, he just wants one more. That's all. She says, that's right. His dick is a serial monogamist. He just wants one more, just one more. See how personal that is? It's very subjective, the way she writes that. You can't do it with objectivity, or else I think it kind of feels leaden. But there are other writers that write that distance. They don't want any values decided upon. They want the reader to do it. And so they stay away from it. You know, she walked into the bank and the bank robber said, get on the floor. I have a gun. You know, not get on the floor, I have a gun. But that it's reportage. It's reportage on, it's not inhabiting of the characters. There's a good reason to do either. But being aware of what you're handing off to your actor will sometimes dictate now how that actor renders that material. How do you want it to sound? Because if you do use more objectivity and that little bit of a distance, I'm not going to cross that and make it, I'm not going to comment on it. It's not my job to do that. So being specific about sort of what you want to do in terms of the voice. I think I went down a side road on that a little bit, Gary. But subtext, again, subtext is one of the core things, but also having a really good handle on your objectivity, subjectivity, knowing how you want that to sound. I had actually, I had one thing I wanted to bring up, which I thought was really an interesting challenge. I was doing, it was the Guardian Angelinos. It's a crime story set in Boston, and the whole family's in on it. Oh, you know what, Gary? Can I pause for a second and ask if there are any questions in the group chat? I'm not sure I can navigate to the chat and back very cleanly. If there's anything that is coming up, I see it all of a sudden flash on the screen and I can't read it. It goes too fast. If you'd just interject, bring it up, and I'll be happy to answer.
When we go to Q&A, we will do that. But as long as
We'll do that, okay.
When we do Q&A, we'll do that.
Okay.
I forgot that you mentioned doing the robber bride. Did you tell me you did that? Yeah.
I read it and I read it and I use it in my teaching as a teaching tool for young actors, but I wasn't hired to do it. I think it was already out there and I was so disappointed someone had already done it.
Well, the reason I said that is that I said, wait a minute, Robert Bride. And I told you I read it and I realized later I hadn't read it. That was one of the books I did on audio or listened to on audio when I was taking a long trip.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
We're talking subjectivity, objectivity, that distance between. Right. Okay. Anecdotal story to throw out. I was working on The Guardian Angelenos, a crime story set in Boston. The whole family's in on it. One's a cop, one's an FBI agent. The other one like can crack safes and things like that. And one's like a special forces guy. So you get the picture. But in the very, very first book of the trilogy, oh God, how do I tell you this without giving away? It's going to be a big, massive spoiler. Oh, I hate spoilers. You have to forgive me. I hope you will all forgive me. In the early part of the book, all right, I'll just say, I'll leave it vague. In the early part of the book, you are very early on, you're introduced to the murderer. And there's a scene, the murderer talks to people. And so the murderer's voice, and I've read the whole book, right? I have to read the whole thing, prep it. I need to know all about it before I can do it. Now I go back and go, okay, what do I do? This author intended for you to meet the murderer. So you're getting, what is that? There's a difference. There's advance mention and advance notice. I think it was this. The author wanted to do advance notice, or advance mention, but not tell you the significance of that person. But he's also in disguise. So visually, like if it were a movie, you wouldn't be able to tell he's wearing a wig. You wouldn't necessarily put the two together if it were a visual, if it was a movie made from your book. But this guy has a scene and talks and his voice has to be used. Now what do I do? If I use that same voice in the middle of the book when it's a mystery who the murderer is, I'm going to tip the author's hand before she wanted it to be tipped. So how do I do that? So I need to come up with an oral A-U-R-A-L equivalent. It's something to think about. If sometimes an author will say, the bridge spanned 1,500 feet and was 3,000 feet above the water. An easy way to commit suicide. And so the author tells you that this is the bridge that the main character is going to commit suicide off of. And you know it from the get-go because all these descriptions are there. Sometimes the author will just say, this is a bridge. And it was this massive span. And not going to tell you anything else until later. And you go, oh, that bridge. So be clear again, when you're clear about what you want to do with it, hopefully you're going to have a good narrator who's going to see that their author has put clues there for them. Follow them. And this again becomes what you might even have a conversation about with your narrator. I'm doing a time travel piece right now. And so, I mean, just as an example of what are the kinds of things that actors and authors discuss and maybe we'll collaborate on, it's a time travel piece. So my main character falls backward through time from 1924 to 1758 and in Virginia. But in 1758, you still had, this is before 1776. We didn't have an Appalachian dialect. I can do Appalachian. I know where it is in the throat, and I know what the vowels are. I know how it goes. And I love the music of that accent. It's gorgeous. But this is 1758. There is no Appalachian accent yet. As a matter of fact, she says some of the people in the book have a very distinctly British accent because people are still coming over from England and convicts are coming over. Remember, this was part penal colony. So I have to do my historical research. And where in Virginia are they? Because there's a little pocket of people, is it Tangiers Island, where they still have their rural British dialect to this day. And it's almost impossible to understand. So those are the kinds of discussions that I had with my author. And, you know, we decided just to use gentle touches. So everyone in the 1700s is going to call their aunts aunt. And they're going to say after instead of after. So that one letter is how we integrate the British without having it be this big heavy-handed thing off at the head. And there are going to be some people who hate it. Have you ever gone on Audible and read reviews? Oh my goodness gracious! People are very frank.
Wow.
And if you read young adult reviews, look out, because those kids, they'll put a leash on you and drag you around through the mud. But you're always going to have somebody who disagrees with your opinion. That's just the way, you know, that's just the way it is. I even had a gentleman, it was in Virginia, I was on a tour, a reading tour, and we were, I think, in the Watergate Library. He raised his hand and he said, couldn't you people just not do voices for the characters? It's so distracting. Just read the damn thing, he said. And everyone else in the room was looking around like, who is this guy? That's not how I like my audiobooks, but he clearly did. He liked them the old-fashioned way from 30 years ago. That's how audiobooks were done. You got a reader who clearly, with great diction, read the book. Well, now you have people with like acting degrees and like, I've been on Broadway. Yeah, sure. I've got those chops. And actors will bring them to the books. So I don't know, did I answer? Well,
No,
yeah.
that's fine. I was going to say yes. I as a listener to audiobooks, I greatly appreciate the performance that you get with a good audiobook. We have a question that's come through that I'll pass on to you, and then we can start talking Q&A. Can you provide names of any cozy or humorous mysteries you've recorded?
Yes. Cozy, 3 off the top of my head. I've read, so far narrated book 1. The author is Sarah Jane McKenna, and it's a wonderful story. Book 2 is out. I haven't yet recorded it. And Sarah Jane McKenna is her pseudonym. She's also a scholar who has written a whole bunch of other stuff as well. Actually, I'm not sure if I can talk about it. But yeah, her name is Beth Mannion. I think she's one of your members too.
Yes.
Yeah, she's one of your members. That's probably the most recent. The other cozy, I loved this. It was the Museum Mystery series. I'm gonna Google my, like I said, I'm at 600 audiobooks now, so please forgive my memory when it lapses. I'm going to go back. It's a wonderful series. The main character is the curator of the Philadelphia Historical Society, and she is connected to all of these other museum curators and people who work in the museums, and a different murder or thing takes place in each of those different museums. And there's even a romance in it, which is really fabulous. I love the romance in it. All right, so where is my reading? There we go. I'm in the middle of a couple of things. Let me just bypass them. It's the same author, actually, that did both of those books. Let's see if that was a while ago, so it may not come up right away. Can I? Hold on.
If we Google you, will there be a list of your books?
Oh yeah,
or
you'll find a lot.
Go on Audible and put you in, search you, and then it'll list the books you've narrated.
You can definitely find me that way. Okay, so here I am. I've gotten to my category. Sheila Connolly is the author's name. She also wrote the Apple Orchard Mysteries, and it's about a maybe late 30s, early 40s woman in Boston working in banking and decides to go to her ancestral home in the wilds of Pennsylvania, near where the Pennsylvania Dutch are. And when she gets there, she's supposed to prep and sell the house, but she discovers an apple orchard behind it and she kind of falls in love with it, warts and all, and she decides to stay in this small town. So you have a lot of people there, you know, talking more rural Pennsylvania, a little more of that Pennsylvania Dutch, penna, a little bit more of an accent there. I love that. I love that one too.
Okay, other questions?
I did Martha Grimes series, and that was interesting because she had written it years ago and they had never made an audiobook out of it. And so her protagonist, I think, is 17. And Hotel Paradise is one of the titles. I'm not sure if that's the title of the entire trilogy, but so yes, Sheila Connolly. I think the first book may be Monument to the Dead, but it's a series of 5 or 6 of them, I think.
Okay.
Fundraising the Dead. Yeah, that's that one.
Okay, anyone else have a question? Just activate your audio. Anyone? Well, I have a question. What's next? What are you working on, or what are you scheduled to do?
Well, interesting one. I'm not sure if this qualifies as a mystery. Only while it was happening, because it's a solved mystery. It's called Never Saw Me Coming, and you'll see it's in pre-sale at this point. But it's about a fascinating woman who is brilliant and figured out how to circumvent the banking system by calling in and pretending to be an employee and getting passed on to a department, and then began moving money around. And at first, it was really sort of this altruistic, so-and-so can't pay their electric bill. Let me make the electric bill go away. Let me put money in the account so they can pay. And then they realized, well, why shouldn't I benefit from this too? And she was able to steal millions and millions of dollars and really pissed off the FBI because they couldn't figure it out. And then once they caught her and said, okay, we know you're not smart enough to do this. Who are you working for? They couldn't believe that a Black woman could do this. And so they ended up letting her go.
Oh, jeez.
Isn't that something? Yeah, there's another one that's like that. A woman who was a diamond thief. Same thing. People just didn't think that, why would this woman have a clue about anything, and was able to be a very successful diamond thief for many years as a result. Isn't that wacky? So I have that's about to drop. I'm not sure if I get to talk about the one I finished yesterday, so I can't. The time travel one. I have to be aware that there are publicity departments that put things together and they want them to drop when they want them to drop, so I let that go. But I have had a run of really interesting titles. The book about the building of the Panama Canal, and the different, it's fictionalized, but again, the backdrop is against an actual event. Really interesting story about the Queen of Haiti, who, after her husband was overthrown and there was a coup, she went to England to friends, and they basically allowed she and her 2 daughters to live there. And that was pretty intense. Let's see if there's anything I can. The Dennis Lehane title. I really like Dennis Lehane. And he set his book in the 1970s during the busing crisis in Boston. So the 2 neighborhoods, essentially, or their cultures, Irish, Southie neighborhood, and the Roxbury Black neighborhood. And a murder happens, so it is a murder mystery. But what a main character. Oh my gosh, she kicks butt. She's the fiercest mama bear you're ever going to meet. And I loved exploring who she is and honoring who she is for every single page of it.
That's a
Amazing.
huge book too, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does it demand a lot of stamina?
Well, interestingly, it's funny you should mention that. I'm here in Hawaii. This is where I am in the summers. I married somebody from here. And so now we do the back and forth between Hawaii and New York. But the booth heats up to 90 degrees inside pretty quick. So I have an air conditioner outside the booth. And I do you know the Pomodoro technique of time management? I kind of do Pomodoros. I work in the booth for 45 minutes and the temperature's getting up and I start schwitzing. And then I open the door and I blow the air in and I sometimes go lie down or I do a crossword or, let it cool down, let my head cool, get some water and I go back in. And I work I'm crazy. I work at like 7 a.m. I'll go into the booth and start to record. I've been blessed with a strong voice, good vocal cords. I take care of it like it is the gem that I consider it. I don't smoke. I barely drink. And I eat well so that these babies will stay doing this good stuff for me. But yeah, I work about 5 to 6 hours recording a day. That's about average. Because after 6 hours, your vocal cords do get tired. And if I have any children to voice, if I have characters that have a higher voice, I have to use a lighter part of my voice. And so trying to support the breath so that I sound like this instead of like this. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, if I have a book that has a lot of men in it and a few women, and I am sort of known for the strength of or the veracity, let's say, of my male characters. And so what I'll do is I'll buy a bottle of red wine at the beginning of the week and I'll have a glass on Monday and I'll have another glass at dinner on Friday, not during the day, at dinner. But that actually red wine will tend to lower my voice and I avoid it like a plague for most of the time. Except a good Grenache or Grenache, French call it Grenache, the Spanish call it Grenache, that has very, very low histamines. And so it doesn't cause all the swelling that wine sometimes causes. But yeah, I know how to take care of this, baby. Spicy food, out. Red wine, bourbon. Do I love a good bourbon? Like anybody. Yes, I do. But I very rarely indulge.
Robin, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Don't log off yet.
Okay.
Nev, stay on. There is no CrimeCraft in August. We will resume in September. The topic will be creating and naming characters. And then we have writer Marie Croak in October. And then we'll talk about audiobooks again in November. Thank you. And
my pleasure.
I'm going to let everybody log off except Nev, me, you, I don't know, Al, but everybody else, because we have to talk about some other stuff and I'll stop recording. But Robin Miles, thank you very much. I'm going to stop recording now.
Okay. Oh, may I say one thing before everybody goes? Just be aware that what's happening in Hollywood right now is that Hollywood execs are listening to the audiobooks of books to screen them for films, which is that's how The Martian got made. That's how it got made. The audiobook was heard and Damon liked it and started shopping it around Hollywood in audiobook form because it's a more fleshed out version of your story.
Sure.
So you can use that to push that forward as well. I just wanted to say that in closing.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.